Hey, welcome everybody to the Alive with Courage podcast. Super excited to have Jim Chapel here. Jim, I know you've been a leader in the financial services forever, and you've been married to Elizabeth. How many years?
Ooh,
Just pop quiz.
53.
No way.
Going on
Wow.
54. Oh, no. Wait a minute. 40, 47,
Nice.
48.
Wow. That's a long time.
We've known each other 53.
Okay, cool. Raised 5 boys. I know you are a lover of Christ, lover of the Word. So much beauty wrapped up in your life. So I'm super excited just to jump in with you. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, I'm curious, like, I don't think I know a lot about your story and I know from like boys in junior high on, that's kind of where I came into the picture, but I'm just curious. Yeah. What were some of the origins of your story and how you got to Orange County and all that?
Oh, great. Well, I think, on a cliff note, I grew up with just a father.
Huh.
I have a very good relationship with my mother, but she wasn't really around in my years growing up. She had another group of families that she raised, and I grew up with just a father. Great experience in that, but also a lot of freedom because he was busy working and doing things. So
Yeah.
we moved to Newport Beach when I was starting high school, Connemara High School. And he worked for the YMCA, which was a great experience. I saw a lot of leadership in him through that. Faith wasn't a big part of his life. He would identify with being a Christian, but it wasn't. And it was through Mariners, some interns at Mariners Church that sought me out through a athletes in action, athletic thing for my football coach. I was going to all these football meetings, and I thought I went to a meeting by accident that ended up being a meeting with a Christian meeting, and
Love how that works.
some interns from Mariners Church were there, and I had to pray for the guy on my left, and I was sweating like crazy. How do you do that?
Wow.
But from a financial standpoint, and from a kind of a overseeing, my dad was he was a great father, but wasn't active really a lot in my life because he was dating and doing other things and busy traveling. And I'd heard about college and thought I wanted to go to college. And a counselor called me in and said, "Are you planning on going to college?" And I said, "I believe so. Yeah, I think so." She goes, "Well, you've got like 3 more days to take your SAT if you want to get in the next year." So
Wow.
I went and took my SAT and had a couple of state school options at that point that I looked at and didn't feel motivated to do. So I ended up going to Orange Coast College initially, lived with a couple, and that was where God really worked in my life because he brought these leaders, some of them that were all on staff at Mariners Church, and they invited me to live with them after high school and while I was going to college. And
Wow.
it was a great experience for me.
Took you in. That's beautiful. I love that. So you end up in your college years, and then is that how did you know you were moving into sort of the financial? Did you go right into financial?
No, Bill Beck, another real mentor in my life, had a store called The Storekeeper. He gave me a job there while I was living with a couple of guys in Laguna Beach, going to Orange Coast College. I applied to USC, got in, and knew that I had to pay for my way to do that. And so I, guy that I played football with, his father was worked in IBM, and he said, "You can come work in this program for college seniors." And even though I was going into my junior year, he allowed me to do that. And it was enough to pay the tuition, my fraternity bill.
So cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. And
so from that, as far as the financial services, I got approached by a guy, Dave Robertson, who is an elder at Mariners Church, and he said, "We'd like to talk to you about coming to financial services." So that's how I got in. He said, "If you work really hard, you can end up making enough money to pay for school." And it worked out really well for me, financial standpoint.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I think I came into the Chapel family I was living with your oldest, Trey. You have 5 boys. You raised 5 boys. And I was out of college, working at a Grace Fellowship as a junior high pastor, rooming with a bunch of guys just like you in Laguna, obviously. And then Trey was one of those guys, which I connected with immediately. He's got one of the most beautiful hearts and just awesome, passionate guy. And so Trey, and then I was getting to Shepherd, Scotty, who was just getting into junior high, your youngest boy, right? So I got this really cool taste of all the Chapel boys, Mac and Chile, and also all of them just getting to really experience what this Chapel family is about. And I think some of the things I noticed off the bat was just like how tight you guys were as a family. Like it was, you guys really stood out in the Grace community as like a really tight crew. And for, you know, and it's stuck with me, honestly. Like I've watched you guys and watched the boys. They're all still here. And it has got me really curious because I raised girls. I have 3 daughters, and it's really interesting to think about like raising 5 boys and then launching them into the Southern California, just lion's den of all. There's so much,
Right.
so much here, especially when I think about the pressures of a man. I mean, in my 20s, I felt there was so much pressure trying to figure out what am I supposed to do with my life, like how do you provide, how do you make money, like what does success look like in this world. And you know, you've walked that journey on your you know, for yourself, and then have shepherded and stewarded 5 boys, like stepping in. I think like I'm just curious, like how have you and then we're going to talk later about you holding spaces for executive leaders in peer groups, and how executives come together and learn how to walk through this journey. So I feel like you have a really unique perspective of like lessons learned on success, lessons learned on like money, lessons learned. I mean, there's a lot to like forming the heart of a man to launch them out into the world. So I'm just curious, what are some of the lessons you've learned as you've walked with men, with your own boys, and through your own journey? What have you learned?
Great question. You know, there's I think it's kind of an evolution as far as my life, and fully under God's providence. And looking back, I would just say it's the grace of God throughout this process. But I initially was driven by fear of failure and insecurity. I think.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was looking around. My dad, we lived in an apartment building in Newport Beach with my father, and I saw these, you know, it seemed like in your mind, you think everyone has this intact family, everyone's doing great. And so I desired that. Yeah. So God used that to give me this desire to have a family unit that was together. So, and, you know, provided this beautiful, wonderful wife, Elizabeth, and everyone thought she was going to have girls. You know, she was this, you know, very girly girl, you know, wearing bows in her hairs and espadrilles and, you know, dresses and stuff. And they said, no way God would have the sense of humor to give her boy, you know, a boy, and much less 5 in a row in like less than 6 years. But, you know, in growing up, you know, having them so close, I went to a business meeting. It was designed for business, and a guy, David Victor Hansen, spoke. And he said, in that, one of the takeaways I got is his kids spell love Time. And I really took it to heart, you know, and growing up with a father that I didn't spend a lot of time with. And so I carved out these special days with each of my kids, and systematic times to spend with them. They became trips, and then they became weeks. So, you know, just pouring into them, because they're all 5 unique, different individuals, you know, and God made. I mean, they grew up in the same environment, the same home, the same love, went to the same church, and but they all have totally different personalities. And
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
It's cool to hear you talk about 2 things stuck out to me is desire, like, and to me, I think sometimes desire gets a bad rap, like in the Christian circle, like it's actually not to be trusted, not to, you know, don't, you know, be careful of the desires of your heart. And I just, for me recently in the last 3 years, a lot of Eldridge's work, just kind of like reawakening, like there's so much goodness in desire. And I feel like that's a great example of like I was craving time as a young man and with my dad, you know, and like that desire actually fueled this incredible vision of like what I want to create for my life. And so yeah, that's really beautiful. So, well, yeah, the second thing was desire and then time. Like, so I'm if you break that down a little bit, like, and you're like, I carved out like specific time. I mean, I remember talking to you a month ago, and you were like, yeah, I have my weekly time with one of my boys. Like, we go to lunch every week. Like, it's like that's still now, even in their adult years. Like, you're playing that out.
Well, there was a secular business author, Michael Gerber, that talked about systematic processes in life and in business. It was mainly more of a business book, how to work on your business versus in it. But I used a lot of personal applications of that in my life after reading the book and then going through a program. They called it a E-Myth Mastery program, but I came up, the biggest takeaway is I was able to tell my office when my kids have a sporting event, I'm walking out the front door. I'm not hiding and going out the back door, because that's a value that's very important to me.
Dang.
I'm going to make it to the games. My dad wasn't able to. He was working in L.A. We were living in Newport Beach. So I wanted to, that was very important to me to be at everything, but I would feel like, hey, I'm running this company. I have people that are accountable to me. I was expecting a lot out of them. And I was feeling like sheepishly I had to get out and sneak away. And after hearing that, it's more about communicating, being transparent with to your employees, what's important to you, and then being able to act on that. So I created these processes, and that was one of them.
Yeah.
In my personal life.
Dang. Yeah, I want to hear more about that. You talked about that. You said in the beginning it was driven by, like, would you say fear and what?
Fear and insecurity.
Fear and insecurity.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But then it's like you just described like a moment where like a truth dropped for you.
Yeah.
Right. And then you made a different decision where it's like, instead of hiding, I'm going to actually like stand in it, which I imagine is like part of the transformation of moving out of fear and insecurity of what other people think, or, what the world says you should be doing. Like, that's a really interesting, I don't know. I just want to capture that, because I feel like those are these like transformational moments that make the man, right?
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Yeah.
And there was a number of those. I think sometimes it could be an author you read and you really like, like Covey was a big inspiration to me, again, a secular, I wouldn't align with his faith, but really good principles that I've been able to apply in my life. But, today it would be other authors and stuff, but there's also people that come into your life at key times that, I think God just places people at the right time. And looking back, I can see, wow, God, you were there to do this in my life. And I was a little slow and didn't pick up on it the first time, and you had to hit me in the head a few times.
Interesting. Yeah, because I'm sure, you still struggle with fear and insecurity at times, like we all do.
Do you like my shirt?
You look great, Jim. But I just, like, when I think about launching boys out into the world, or even I'm just thinking about my own journey. I'm 45, and right in the middle of raising a family, and like I struggle. There's fears and insecurities that I'm wrestling with, and I'm just curious how what's the battle look like? How do you fight for that heart and get that heart above water? Because it's really easy to just default into fear and insecurity and let that run your day or run your week, or you come home and you're sitting at the dinner table and you're just staring at the wall and you're not present, because you're just reeling in fear and insecurity. So I'm just curious, like, how do you fight? Like, how do you move through that?
Well, I was a follower of Christ early on, and thank God for that, as you navigate through this. But I think a lot of the times I wasn't necessarily acting on what I believed. I wasn't living it the way that today I think through as you go through. There's one of the mentors I had in one of my first business experiences said, you go through initially this starry-eyed enthusiasm when you go into something, and then you go into a sophisticated confusion stage, and then you go into a mature simplicity. And I think in my Christian faith, I'm moving toward that other, where I'm more relaxed and waiting on God and trusting Him and trying to live out what I believe. I mean, we always are trying to do that, and I don't think this side of heaven we're able to fully do that. Even though we get closer to it in our maturity. But there's a lot of things that happen along the way that I think today I would do it differently. I would give somebody else advice differently. I mean, Trey, like I was telling Trey, my oldest son, a number of times, hey, this is something that happened in my life, and this is what I learned from it. And I would continue to do that. And Trey one time said to me, Dad, you keep telling me how you learned from something in life and how you grew from it. But it was through something you did, you made a mistake or you had a failure and what you learned from it. And he says, don't you think I need to go out and make my own mistakes and fail my own way and learn from those? I go, yeah.
This is why we're meeting weekly, so you don't do that.
But, I think sometimes you can hear it, you know it, but, until you really experience it, and then you have to really trust God to say, God, I don't know, I can't get out of this without you, and that's where the rubber meets the road and you really, I think, grow and mature. Yeah.
Were there any, I mean, if you're comfortable sharing any of some of those formative moments where you're just like, man, this is where it went, my faith left my head and had to go into actual theory and my faith moved from theory to actual practical life where I'm relying heavily on this right now.
Right. I could say that, we could be here for a week. I could tell you about all the failures and and the things that happened in my life. But a major one was, I literally had created a company and got fired from my own company. We had private equity come in and we'd raised capital 3 times. I was out and I came into a boardroom one time and got let go from my own company.
Wow.
And so I went home and told my wife. It was such a shock. And she said, hey, God, created this for us and he's still here. And I mean, she was a great support on that. But I had to really, really dig down and trust God through it. We came to Grace, which is our church, and we went up front. They prayed for us because we were moving to another city to take on another position for another company. And they prayed that we'd meet somebody that would have faith, that would pull us in. And the first person I met, I'm going out, I was managing a group of people, and the very first person I met with, I had a period of 4 months where I was commuting back and forth to the East Coast.
Wow.
Every weekend I'd come home because our kids were still in school before they transitioned out to Maryland. And the very first person I met with had these praying hands on his lapel, and he was a member of a church called Grace Fellowship Church.
No way. Same church?
It was by name only. And he said he was an elder there. He was one of the guys in my organization, though, and said, I've been praying about getting into a men's group, a Bible study. I said, well, that's been a formative part of my life, so important to me. And so we ended up meeting in my home with a bunch of other guys that he put together from that point. So the very, very first, it was God saying, I got you, and I heard it, and I'm answering this prayer. And then there was just constantly throughout that process. And then where we lost a lot and just gained so much, though, and I would never have changed that experience.
Dang. Yeah, that has a way of shaking the snow globe on what you think is security, what you think what you think success is. Based on all the failures, I'm curious, as if you were talking to me, 45, or young men in their 30s or in their 20s, and they're trying to wrap their heads around what is the goal, what is success, especially in Orange County, how would you counsel?
I think, and I would say some of my failures are just more important. I'd start with some of my successes.
Yeah.
Had nothing to do with me, really. I mean, I would say, again, back to Providence and God laying it on me. I mean, I ran into a person that I wasn't looking at being a leader. I ran into a guy who said, hey, I'm doing this. I want to show you what I'm doing. And that ended up becoming something that was big enough to build a company out of it. I was in college, and a guy said, I want to mentor you, one of the top professors at USC. I don't know why he picked me. But he wasn't a believer, but just a wisdom. He introduced me to Peter Drucker. He just poured into my life. It was just God doing that. And so I think there's times where success is what happened. You can think about, hey, and this is what I think continued to happen to me. I'd go, thank you, Lord. But then I was thinking, hey, look what happened. Look what I did.
Yeah.
Look at this company I built, or look at this success I've had. And then boom, God will say, okay, I don't think that's what I meant to have you feel. And boom, there was a time I was thinking there's not a house in Newport that we couldn't afford, or and boom, the rug just got pulled out. And then we grew, and then I had another experience where we rebuilt, and then I kind of felt back into that. I'm working hard, and I'm thinking how I'm doing it, and then God said, no. I was going through this program of halftime and another mastery program where I was working with a coach, and I thought, hey, I've got all my financial side of things taken care of for the rest of my life. I want to give back, and I think that's the thing to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be the guy now that's going to be, look at me, I'm giving back, the second half of my life, success to significance. And boom, something happened in my company, and I lost my whole company just like that. And I went from hero to zero very quickly. Dude. And again, I go, okay, Lord, I see it. I thank you. I needed that. Wow. May I have another? And but again, wouldn't have changed it. Love it, the experience, and how close it brings you God. I mean, you learn from the failures, and you become closest to God. And when you do a lifeline, that's what we do in our groups. You're talking about the peer-to-peer group. A lot of times, everyone gets up and does a lifeline about their life, so you grow intimacy and transparency with people. But you find as you go up and down the highs and the lows, you can almost overlay that when you were closest in your relationship with God at the lows, because you need Him, and you go to Him and say, Lord, I can't do it without you.
Yeah. It's crazy because it's almost like even God's like, I can work with any definition of success that you think,
right?
Because I'm going to actually mold it into the definition of success that I want you to sit with. And yeah. So I was just thinking because that seems like a lot of the Christian kind of definition of success in Orange County is make a lot of money,
go on great vacations,
buy
a nice house,
all those beautiful things, and then get to a point where you're just this really generous giver. I mean, if I'm being honest, that's been my definition of success has been make a ton of money so you can be really generous and then sit at a table of other men and feel really good about yourself.
Right.
Absolutely. That would be a definition of success that I've held,
And you might even say, in a Christian circle, well, God's blessed me with all, but it's still, but inside, there's times where I was saying, hey, look what I've done,
Yeah. Well,
it wasn't me, it was God. Truly, as I look back, all the key aspects of whatever happened along the way, it was totally God and all my successes.
Yeah. So I guess one path is to kind of go in that direction and fall on your face multiple times. I mean, and you were talking about your conversation with Trey and how you're like, yes, but can I tell you, and he's like, well, I gotta fail too. But if you were tempering that temptation to be made a lot of money, really generous giver, and now I can sit with esteem in other Christian men's circles. If you were tempering that and you were just hey man, I've lived it. I get, I know where that goes. How would you interrupt that? Do you think for say someone like myself or other young men that are growing up, if you were I want to record scratch a moment and interrupt this program because there's more to the story. How would you come in or how would you interrupt it, I guess?
I would say for myself, one of the things I've learned over the last few years is starting off each day. I mean, with something we've learned in this organized Bible study that I'm a part of called Axios.
Yeah.
And is a prayer of intention. And starting off literally before I put my feet on the bed, I mean, out of bed and onto the floor, is starting off with a prayer of not being conformed to this world, but transformed by a renewing of my mind to the mind of Christ that's already in me. And not to hide and cover, but have my identity in Christ. And I think that's really the key point is where's your identity? And to truly live that out by having God with you along each minute of the day. And it's not just, there was a book called Loving Mondays one time when I had read, and it was just how, we can be so on fire for the Lord on Sunday, but then Monday starts and we go back to the grind and the stress of life and building and growing and churning versus, walking with God along the way, each step and each aspect of your life and putting him first.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I know for me, the way I get access to that identity work is through the feelings that are coming up in me. And so if anxiety or fear or uncomfortable feelings are starting to come up, like, let's say before even doing this podcast together, and you're feeling a little insecure, you're feeling fear, like that is an incredible invitation for God to be like, yo, can we pop the hood?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on under there? Like, who are you believing you are in this moment?
Right.
I'm the not good enough one. I won't ask good questions.
Right.
I won't whatever. Right. Like and that I've learned is actually what confession is. You're just truth telling what's going on in the heart.
Right.
And it's like, Lord, I'm believing I'm the not good enough one. Like, who do you say that I am? Right. And just learning to hear his voice and hear what he says about you. What does the word say about you? Right. Like, that identity exchange has been something that's been such a helpful tool for me to go, okay, you see me as, right. So I love that. Yeah. That prayer of intention. That you said something in that too, where you said reminding yourself that the mind of Christ is in you. Mm-hmm. That I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, and they were talking about the mind of Christ.
Oh, interesting.
And how we actually can gain access to the mind of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And even just the example I just mentioned, like, I'm calling myself, my mind is calling myself the not good enough one. Mm-hmm. The mind of Christ, what do you say I am? Like,
right.
And it's like and especially when he gets to speak it to you and speak it to your heart and speak it, like, to gain access to that mind of Christ. Like, I'm curious how, like, how do you gain access, I guess, to the mind of Christ? Because sometimes it doesn't feel like, it seems like the still soft, small voice, whereas the voice of fear and the voice of the world and the ego and everything seems so much louder.
Right.
Like, and so,
especially here in Orange County.
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
You're just driving around and it's just yelling at you the whole time. And so I'm just thinking, like, man, it really is a discipline to gain access to the mind of Christ. Like,
well, I mean, it starts with, whatever it takes, getting up early enough in the morning to just have time with God. I mean, before you start looking at the phone, the news, and how your portfolio is doing, or, whatever. I mean, it just starts off with just spending time with God and getting grounded.
Yeah.
I mean, something we know, but sometimes to really practice it and say, God, and it's a process.
So good. Oh, I'm curious what, so you said I'm starting to enter into this mature simplicity, like, of my faith, where it doesn't have to be that complicated, and it does. I mean, I guess, how would you describe mature simplicity? Like, if you were,
I think mature simplicity would be reliance on God truly, and it would be, like the 23rd Psalm we were talking about, Dallas Willard's book, that life without lack, really feeling content, and not content in what your retirement plan is telling you are, but content in what your relationship and the God's promises in your life and what that means. Content that whatever happens today, I'm okay. It's safe because God, you are my shepherd, and you're taking care of me. But the transfer from something in the world giving you that feeling to God giving you that.
Wow.
But to really feel it. I mean, that's the real crux of the significance of it. It's one thing to say the 23rd Psalm like it's a poem or some artistic, a lot of people memorize it, know it or whatever, but to really live it and feel it.
Yeah. How would you say you've gotten to that, where it's like, I'm actually living, feeling, and experience the promises of God or the mind of Christ? Like, what do you think have been the main things that have helped you, like, move into that season?
Yeah, and I really don't want to claim that I'm there.
Yeah, no, yeah.
I'm in a process,
Yeah.
but I would say through life experience,
Yeah.
and seeing God's faithfulness time and time again.
Like you can't deny it.
I just can't deny it. And
Yeah.
he's revealed so many times that he's faithful. He's revealed that we always know he answers prayer. Every prayer he answers. Maybe not the answer we want, but to see that the answer he's giving me are the answers that are best for me.
Yeah. Or to Trey's wisdom, the failures that you've had to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. What do you think? So like, your life obviously isn't over. There's more to go. And I'm just thinking about, I'm curious, what are some of the adventures that you feel like God's calling you into? And he's like, so now we're playing with real money. Like we're actually, either you're experiencing the promises, you're understanding that like, I will show up, I am there. I'm just curious, like what adventures are you currently in that you're like, I've got to rely and trust, and there's 90-degree turns I can't see around, right? Like, or what do you think he's like inviting you into, like in this season?
I would say in this season, I kind of, one of the lessons I learned was thinking I've got it all together, so now I'm going to take on control. And this is where I'm going to go, and God is leading me this way. I think now it's just more open to day by day trusting God, and he's put me into a position where I really do. I need to trust him in all of my life, and so sensing and understanding how each day I just trust in God, and so I don't have real grand plans for the future. Things are popping up that I'm pursuing and enjoying. Ways that I can, this peer-to-peer group that I'm involved with, and enjoying that process, being a guide in that.
Yeah, maybe you can speak a little bit about, because I resonate with that, in that there's literally an adventure in the next 2 hours for us.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Like you're gonna go reconnect with your wife, or you're gonna sit down on the computer, you're gonna jump into a peer group, like whatever it is. What's God gonna do? Like, and you can either approach that with like fear and insecurity, because it's on you and you got to control it and you got to figure it out, like, or there's this like sort of awe and wonder and like, okay, like I'm listening, I'm here, I'm waiting, right? Like, so I think, I don't know, just in my experience, I'm realizing that there's like, Eldridge talks a lot about a man's heart craving an adventure to live, a battle to fight, and a beauty to rescue. Like that's just like the heartbeat of a man, and I'm like, man, there's adventure like around every turn here. There's an adventure in the conversation you're going to have with your 15-year-old daughter, tonight at dinner, and especially if it's not on you. If it's on you, then there's a lot of pressure, that comes with things like that. But when it's on him and he's inviting you in, and there's curiosity of like, what are we doing here, Lord? Like, what do we want for this lunch you're going to have with your son, or whatever it is? It ends up opening up this really wonderful, awe-inspiring, curious adventure that's just shifting every day, So there's like, there's something about that's really, sounds like it's really fun to go into the unknowns in adventure with God, because and there's so much opportunity for intimacy in that. Yeah.
And trust, and just trusting God.
Yeah. Like actually having to exercise the trust muscles.
Yes.
which are quite atrophied when there's fear and insecurity and control and pressure. Yeah. Oh, so good. Well, I wanted to also talk about you've spent a lot of time in what we call like peer groups, forums. I know YPO, Young Presidents Organization, was a huge part of your life, and now there's a group called Banded that you're leading those executive peer groups, and then all kinds of different men's studies and Axios groups, as you mentioned. Seems like that's a really big part of your life. Like there's obviously the family unit that you built, right? That you have, so there's so much beauty in, but then it also extends out into work life. And it seems like there's a very connected, it seems like community is a big part of your life, and what you pour a lot into. And I know you've done a lot of leading in those spaces where you're around a crew of, 8 to 12 guys, and maybe even women sometimes, like when some of the executive peer groups. And I'm curious, like, to me, that's a real art to be able to lead and hold a space for, like, you can go to those groups and they can be really shallow and really, people are just checking their watch the whole time on their phones, just waiting for the thing to be over. And then there's also times where they're life changing and they become huge lifelines for leaders that are often leading with a lot of control pressure, fear, insecurity, and doing their best to get through it. And I'd love to hear, like, what's your experience been in those groups? Like, whether participating or leading, like, how have they impacted your life?
Well, they've impacted my life very positively. Yeah, I've been in a peer-to-peer group through YPO forum. It was like, usually it's like 10 to 12, 13 guys that are in a group. And they've been very significant. I think for a group like that to thrive, it needs to have some guidelines around it. I think often being a leader can be lonely. You don't have a place to turn, a place to share where someone really gets it and understands what you're going through. But you got real people out there that are leading companies and or are in a position of leadership. And so if you enter a format where it's first and foremost 100% confidential, so that brings down a lot of barriers, and there's the expectation of complete transparency as well. So you once you are vulnerable to others, they become more vulnerable to you, and then that's where the real work gets done, I think, in a group. And you never know what you're going to need in life, but to have a personal board of directors or somebody that cares about you, not how the numbers are going in the company or how, are we hitting our goals, but how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are you processing what's happening? Are you content? Are you happy with things in your life and the way things are happening?
Yeah.
And people that are leading a company, they still have family issues. They still have health issues. There's significant things that are going on, and they need a place to share and talk with people that can relate and truly care about them. And I think you start caring about people when you get to know them. And so in that vulnerability, you really know the people in the group. And myself in that group, I may be, as it's called, a moderator or a guide, but I'm not. It's not really a position of leadership. It's more of one of just facilitation. But as a facilitator, you have to also be very transparent and open.
Yeah.
And also try to, first, as Covey said, first to understand before you're understood. Listen. The very important to not, and there's some language goals with people to, you don't try to fix things in a group.
Yeah.
You don't say, you should do this, or, I hear what you're saying, but this is what you need to do to correct that. So one of the language would be more of, in my experience, in my failure, this is how I grew, this is what I learned. And it fosters more transparency and also more growth and empathy in the group when you're speaking like that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah.
And really meaning it. Because, there's a smell test. People know if you're being, if you're
telling a fable.
Yeah. Is that, yeah. So, yeah.
That's cool.
And there's a point where you want to really learn to scratch people where they're itching and understand what is really going on. So you want to pull things out, maybe that you say, are you really okay? Or is that really what you're feeling? Or is that just what you're saying right now? Because we still get caught up in being, macho, a little bit men, and we want to put some covers on.
Put on the face.
Put on the face, yeah.
Yeah. So there's times where, you gotta be willing to spar a little bit and kind of,
in a loving way.
Yeah. What have you noticed, like, when all the listening, and all the tables you've been at, what do how do you notice where leaders get in their way a lot? Like when you get into those vulnerable spaces, what are some of the themes that you see of like, okay, this is how these tables typically get in their way, like that you're noticing?
When you said when a table gets in the way, or
Well, so you listen to a bunch of different leaders around the table for years upon years, and I would imagine there might be some themes that start developing where you're like, this is where the heart of a leader gets taken out,
okay,
and this is where things, this is why groups like this exist, is to come around these certain themes that leaders often face when they're leading companies.
well, I think sometimes just the theme would be an inability to really share their heart. I mean, inability to, afraid of judgment, afraid of how somebody's going to think. So, so the hope is you get in these groups and all of that comes down. And so a lot of the work initially is around lowering that through transparency and honesty and trust that this group is confidential and I'm not going to be judged. The difference in the secular group versus one that's got a faith-based Christian foundation is that, you get a lot of, the universe will take care of it and stuff as an application, and where you go with the information is so different. And it's so refreshing to be in a group where you can stop the whole meeting when there's a hardship. And we've gone through you name it, in these, of things that have happened, and people stop and you can walk up and put hands on someone and pray for them. And we know that's a much better solution. We got an almighty God that loves and cares for us ultimately, that's able to intervene into this situation, versus, giving someone just some comfort and saying, hey, I'm with you, I'm feeling your pain, but we really can go to a greater source. And we all have that in common.
Yeah. It's like when it's very obvious the table has reached its limits in its own understanding, and it's like to be able to appeal to the larger story and to God is so beautiful. I love that. I'm curious, I've had a lot of I do lead a couple faith family business groups and have played that moderator role for you, and like you've talked about. I'm super curious if let's say someone was like, Jim, we want you to design like a whole new peer group space. It's not YPO, it's not Bandit, it's not Axios, right? And you were designing something based on the desires of your heart, the desires that the spaces you've led and what you've seen work and not work. Like, I'm just curious, would you change anything, or what would you design if you were kind of creating your own space?
It's a good question. I might have to think about that. I think I'm evolving and doing it real time in the groups as they are. I mean, there's not a lot of boundaries around what we can and can't do. In this group. So I mean, I just working more and more on transparency and trust. Earning that right with people that they really do feel comfortable. Because I don't think you ever really get, we're going through right now knowing yourself this month, in the Johari window, leadership window, where, we all have these 4 quadrants. One is that open quadrant. That is one quadrant, but we want to expand that open quadrant. Then you have the quadrant of things I know about myself, but I'm not comfortable sharing with others. And we're always we can shrink that, but there's still stuff that we're not really willing to share with people around. Then there's a quadrant of things that they know about me, but I don't know about me. When you do that 360 with someone, and did you realize you do this and how it makes people feel? And people don't, but you have to be able to earn the right to do that in a very loving way and reveal that to somebody so they can go to the next level with their ability to lead and to.
So it sounds like you're saying like the next adventure for you in these spaces is really around like, how do I keep getting better at developing trust and
Yeah.
vulnerability and transparency. Yeah, that's cool.
And helping others by believing in them. So many paths along so many times along my path, my journey, is somebody believing in me more than I believe in myself. And the more I can help others know that I believe in them. Same thing with my boys. I mean, I literally, one of my boys yesterday, and it really comes from the John Eldridge. Everyone has these complicated relationships with their father, whatever it is. I mean, in a good way, bad way, but I mean, but the most ultimately, a boy wants to know that their father loves them, believes in them, feels that they can do it and achieve. And I literally just sent a text to one of my sons yesterday. I believe in you, I trust you, I love you, and I know you're going to be successful at what you're doing. I mean, I think that's, you want to do that with people in your group. But sincerely, I think if with belief, and that's the thing with our relationship with God, our Heavenly Father, Abba, He believes in us and He knows us and intimately loves us. And the more we can appreciate and understand that, then we can achieve more with our faith and our maturity in Christ.
So good. Yeah, because it's hard to really give what you don't have. And so it's like, as you start getting more of that affirmation from the Father, and it just like flows out of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And I think about Jesus as well. Like, some of the most impactful stories in the Bible are Him seeing you the way He made you, and the way he loves you, and the way and people just get called out and they're like, what? Like, you see me like this? I mean, it's like some of the most transformational moments when you can see somebody like through the way that God made them and what they're meant for, and encouraging that. And it's, oh gosh, that is such a gift to have people calling that out in you, Yeah, it's super good. Oh, Jim, dude, there's so much good stuff here. Like, thank you so much for sharing.
Absolutely.
Like, you have walked so many spaces that I'm either in or about to get into, and so I've learned so much and appreciate you and your wisdom. And especially, I think what stuck out to me the most is just how, just this path that God wants to use. God is working this out in us, but He's using people like you and others that are helping walk people through the fears and the insecurities of their lives. That it's like, can we just get honest about this stuff? Can we just get vulnerable about it and just get it out on the table? Because there's so much rescue waiting on the other side of that conversation, like through community, through God, through His word, His truth. And like, He's like, you have the mind of Christ living in you. Like, can we access it and actually start living from it?
Right.
And there's so much fruit coming from that. So thank you for being with us and sharing all the fruit, man.
Yeah. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
Good.